Hey everybody. So we're ready to start putting the finishing touches on. I have already one of them went off in front of my desk. I've already added the bling to all of them except for one because I wanted to show you how I do that. Because if you're not careful with this stuff, you'll get hot glue all over the place. So I wanted to show you how to do that. And I wanted to show you that this stuff is actually super easy to cut. So basically what I do is I measure out the length of the piece that I need. And all you have to do is put your scissors in the groove and just cut right up. And then you can cut it any width that you want. And you get a nice little diamond chain effect. I've cut mine in nice long strips. And that's what we're going to do for the top piece. And then we're going to make the collar. So what I do when I put these on, and there's a little trick to it, so that you don't get hot glue all over the place. What I have here is a bamboo skewer, and it's got a really sharp tip on it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I put on two of the little pieces just a little bit of hot glue. And if you don't have patience to do intricate work, this is not going to be the thing for you because it's pretty intricate. To do this. And I put two pieces on at a time because you have to wait for this one to cool so that you can start your trim, because otherwise you're going to pull it off. So I go ahead and start my two pieces for my trim. And I'm really careful to not lay my finger in it, and that's why I've got the bamboo stick, because the little diamonds have little divots in it, so I just use the stick to poke in. And you'll see that here in just a second, because I'm going to pull back my piece, and I'm going to make sure it's untangled, because that makes it go easier. And then very lightly, I'm going to lay a bead of hot glue straight down this. Now all these pieces have already been Mod Podged, so they've got a little bit more shine to them now. So what I do is I just take my bamboo stick just to make sure it's seated in the hot glue, and I just kind of touch here and there into different gems. And like I said, that's just to make sure it's good and seated into the hot glue. You don't have to touch every single one. And then I cut mine a little bit long just for handling purposes, so I'm not trying to get that last little bit on there, so I don't cut them exact. I cut them just a little bit long, give me just a little bit of finger pull to lay it down into the hot glue. But on these gems, there is gaps, so that's why it's really important to just hit the center, because then that's why you pull up hot glue and there's a mess. And that's going to put the bling on. So now we're going to make the collars. I've already made one. That way you didn't have to sit here and watch me make two. But what I did is this styrofoam came from Dollar Tree. And I needed it to be smaller. And I have a special cutter for it, but not everybody's got this kind of cutter. So I went about this in a way that was probably something that you have around your house. So what I have here is just a regular tumbler cup. You can use a tumbler cup or any kind of cup. Just make sure it's kind of got a sharp edge and it's really, it has to be really, really sturdy. So I'm going to place my cup in the center. And I'm going to twist and press down. You can also use for the collar just regular foam. The whole purpose for the collar is when you put the rhinestones on. So if you don't put the rhinestones on, and this is not something that you need in your project, the rhinestones and stuff are going to cause your piece to kind of have a gap in it and tilt a little bit. So you can use a foam piece also, just a outdoor foam, kind of like a weather stripping kind of to seat around there, but you'll just need to have something that you can use. Now I had a little bit of difficulty getting this out, so I found the best way is just take my knife and cut a hole to give me something to pull it out. And just be careful, because otherwise you'll break it. So I'm just going to go really careful and wedge it out like that. So it's got a little bit of a rough edge. I'm just going to knock that off with my knife. Like I said, you can just use foam. You can go to like Lowe's and get inch foam about 1 inch thick to do this. And then you can just cut it out. And then you don't really have to go through all this, especially if you get it in a nice color, because then all you have to do with the foam is basically glitter it down and just make it pretty for your collar. So the next thing is that it needs a place to sit, so we have to cut this out just a little bit further. So I grabbed a cap off of some spray, and it's really important to center this up. And this one's actually easier because it just punches on through. Just like that. And then you have like a little round donut. So the next thing I do is I just kind of want to smooth this up just a little bit. And now I'm going to add my trim to the outside, which is just the Harlequin ribbon. And then as I hot glue, I'm going to kind of zigzag back and forth just to give my ribbon a good seating. And it just turns out that this ribbon, it's 5/8 inch thick, is just as wide as my foam. So I'm going to pull that back to cut it. Okay, so the next part is that it needed to have a little bit of cushion to it. And so I had chunky yarn around my shop, so that's where I got the cushion from mine. So that we're just going to run that around the top. Like I said, that cushion, and this, you only really need to do this if you do the gems. So if you do something that's going to be thick and not flat like the ornament ball, that's the only reason you really need to do these collars. Because when I went to put mine together after I put the gems on, it didn't sit right. And that's what occurred to me would make it sit right, and it worked out. Now this won't Mod Podge, so what I'll do is I will just spray this chunky yarn. I will just spray it with a clear acrylic sealer once I get it assembled. And I'm trying to make sure that all my seams stay toward the back, toward one side, because don't forget I've got a seam in that Harlequin ball. So when I go to set these together, I'm going to want all the seams in what in the back. So once again, I'm kind of zigzagging the hot glue around. You might be able to think of different things for the collar, but you know, just remember it. If you do this gems, it kind of needs to be a little bit cushy. You might be able to find a really thick gasket, something that you can just put your trim around that has cushion to it. So the last thing I'm going to do before we assemble is I had this ornament ball that I wanted to put on top, and it's a hard plastic ornament ball. So I wanted to show you how I did that. You can get the soft styrofoam ones at Hobby Lobby, places like that. But this is what I had, so I just wanted to show you how I did that on top of mine. I'm going to get my file out here, and what I did was I took my floral cutters and I snipped down into it, and I just gradually snipped off the very top collar. And it was really easy to do. I thought at first I was going to break the ornament, but I didn't. Because I thought as soon as I did that, it was going to crack in half. And what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to make this flush as possible. So basically when I did this project, if I had it around the shop, that's what I tried to use and not spend more money. So then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to file this down pretty flush. Once I trim it down, I just want it to so it'll sit flat. Then I'll grab my top piece. Add a little hot glue. And set that aside to cool. All right, so now we're ready to assemble. So for my project, what I did, and I'm going to go to the front facing so you can see better as we stack them. I had these ceramic pots sitting around, and it just actually was funny that it sat in here perfectly for what I wanted to do. You might have to dig this out a little bit, and I might have to do this one too because mine's going to sit flush on this. The ball is, so I might have to round this out just a little bit so that my ball will sit. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do to make sure my ball is going to sit before I go poking a hole in here. Is I'm going to take it and flip it upside down and make sure that it's going to sit, and it is. So now we're ready to mount our sticks. Now, if you're going to use this in an outdoor topiary, you're going to want to leave this stick quite a bit longer. That way you've got a good mounting, but mine's going to go indoors. And because mine's going to go indoors and I know that this stick is too long, I'm going to have to cut it off. So I'm just going to take my cutters and just go around it. And it takes just a little bit to get this cut, as opposed to having to drag out a bunch of different tools, because I have the jigsaws and whatnot, but I can have this cut before I get that drug out and plugged in. So what we want to do now is I'm going to fill that hole with hot glue. I don't want to put the hot glue on the stick because then we end up with a hot glue mess. We don't want to trip over the finish line. So I'm going to fill the hole with hot glue not totally, but enough to make sure that my stick's going to seat in there nicely. Then I'm going to double check my depth and make sure that that's going to sit in the bottom nicely. And then what I'm going to do to seal around the fabric and the stick is I'm going to put just a little bit of hot glue. Just go around kind of like making a collar. You have to start, I'm waiting for that to cool. So you have to start at the bottom. And the reason you have to start at the bottom, because as you build, don't forget your sticks didn't all sit exactly. So you have to start at the bottom and build up to get your sticks to fit right. So in the styrofoam, so it doesn't push up, just for me personally, I'm going to get my circular file back out. Because I don't want this going any further into my styrofoam. And I'm just going to start a little pilot hold. And that's setting my first ball. Okay, so I'm going to go to the front facing camera so you can see me stack this better and how I go about it. Hey. All right, so now we want to move on to our second stick. Once again, we know that we have plenty of depth, but this stick is too long. And we knew that this one was, so probably what I should do, and I got lucky that that stick went all the way through. So I think what we're going to do is make sure that these seat properly, because I can always cut this stick off, but I've got it measured so these seat properly. So I'm going to push this one up because we knew it was too. We're just going to do a little, basically dry testing like we did before, just to get all these in there where they belong. Just like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to carefully pull this ball off. And I'm going to hold my stick. And what I'm going to do to make sure I'm going in the right, back in the right spot, is I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to mark right there on the stick how far down this needs to go. So when I put it back in after I hot glue, I'm not going down too far or anything like that. So once again with the hot glue, and now we want to add the collar. So the collar doesn't need to be glued in place or anything like that, because the pressure of the ornament balls is going to hold it in place. Once again, I'm going to put a little glue in this one. Don't do too much because then otherwise it's hard to slide your ball on, but you want enough to secure it. Now I have my seams facing me, and I'm going to push that down. So we have one more collar to add. So I'm going to put a little bit more distance between these sticks. And I'm going to make sure that that collar is facing behind me. And once again, hot glue down in the hole. Put the collar up there. And push that down. So one more time with the top piece, we're going to put a little hot glue in there. Now I'm going to kind of hold this so that I'm holding it so it's nice and tight with the hot glue. Because if you don't, it kind of like springs up because these are cushiony. And I don't want it to spring up. So there you have it, your very own topiary. Aren't these so fun? These are so fun. So much fun. I do want to tell you really quick before we run off how I put the glitter on. Glitter paint doesn't always work out the best. So let's go back to overhead cam and I'll show you that really quick. So what I did to get the glitter on my bottom piece, right here is where I glittered it. I went ahead and Mod Podged the whole thing first. Let it dry, and it takes 15 to 20 minutes before it dries. Then I just Mod Podged this one section, very thin coat, and added the glitter on. And then I came back and I took 15-20 minutes and added the top coat. So it's ready to go. And y'all, I'm in love with this project. I don't know about you. But thank y'all so much for joining me. I can't wait to see the ones that y'all make and everything, but I absolutely love doing this project. I've always wanted one, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. Thank y'all so much for joining me. Can't wait to see yours. Bye, y'all.